All right, good evening. This is the Board of Selectmen's meeting for September 27th, 2016, and we're actually going to start tonight with a meeting of the Governor Stoughton trustees, and our planning director, Bill Clark, is here, who's going to give us an update on the application pending before the Planning Board for the Pulte Homes of New England LLC proposal.
Hey, Bill.
Good evening, Bill.
Good evening. To date, Pulte has filed a special permit for a cluster development to the Planning Board, 23 units on the 30 acres that they propose to buy. Pulte's also filed with the Conservation Commission for the necessary environmental permits. They have an NOI, they've had the wetlands delineated. They're still working with Concom. The Planning Board is reviewing the submitted application, confirming it meets all the current zoning, i.e. the road layout, the layout and design. They're doing the traffic issues, the proposed buffer zone to the existing neighbors, the 100-foot neighborhood buffer. They're working on that particular issue. The utility routing, how it's coming, how that project will tap into the towns and how that project will help loop our existing water lines to take away some of the poor pressure that might be at the top of down Governor Stoughton itself, Governor Stoughton Lane. It also provides for more shutoffs and cleaner water as it loops through all of those systems. The site topography, the cut and fill areas, the drainage, and the housing locations. So far, the project's drainage is being peer-reviewed by an independent engineer. The project's engineering is actually the most time-consuming of all the efforts that are ongoing at this time. One of the proposals takes and places two stormwater detention basins within the 4 acres that will be still owned by the town. I've asked Pulte for the reasons why the drainage is on the 4 acres staying with the trustees. Pulte's reply is that they're currently trying to move the structures off of the 4 acres or they have to reconfigure the 4 acres. Right now they are reconfiguring the 4 acres. As currently designed, the proposed new drainage structures will comfortably handle any future development on the remaining 4 acres kept by the town. Pulte's met with the Milton Historic Commission on September 19th. They discussed the issues of concern to Mass Historic, i.e. relocating the stone walls, keeping the pest house but moving it up to the 4-acre site. Issues of concern to the Historic Commission are relocation of the walls, how, where, when, any restoration of the town farm structures was asked, demolition efforts in conjunction with the town. Was Pulte interested in working with the Historic Commission on potential signage for the existing town farm area, access to the property? Historic Commission was actually interested in the pest house relocation and the reuse of the men's house, the hows, the whys, the practicalities. The project has filed an environmental notification form with MEPA. That's the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act. They received permission to proceed without having to file more. There was one constraint that the project would have to file with DCR for an access permit onto Unquity Road. The ENF and the letter from DCR allows that to take place, but there needs to be an access permit. The access permit is going to have constraints put in it by DCR. So the town has met with Pulte, our engineering department has met with Pulte. The Pulte's engineers and their traffic people are looking at what that new roadway will look like and some potential future mitigation that DCR is requiring. The project's a cluster development under our current zoning has a requirement for 2 affordable units with 23 homes. Now, Pulte has taken and requested that the 2 units be at the men's house on the 4-acre site. By putting it into the men's house, they're responsible for rebuilding the men's house to house those 2 units. The 2 units belong to the trustees, and they will go to the subsidized housing inventory list when they're done. So they're, you as trustees, the units belong to you. But Pulte does the work. The moving the pest house is just a case of relocating an existing house on the site. And it's up to the town where we want, or the trustees, where we want to take and place that building. The issues that they're looking at are the roadway. There's a 50-foot fee, which is the width of the road. There's 20 feet of pavement. The roadway length is 1,850 feet. There's a sidewalk on one side. As the road comes in off of Unquity Road, there'll be an area to one side or the other that will be set aside with a bench for the kids who come from that particular area. If they have to take a school bus, that they can meet. They'll be off the road, it's safer. The road itself is going to be a public road. All of the drainage structures on that piece will belong to the town too. That's a requirement of using the state land. There is an emergency access up at the top of that road, up by the cul-de-sac at the end, that will go over to Governor Stoughton Lane. It'll connect to the 4-acre parcel. The emergency access is only for public safety. It's not for, I need a shortcut to go to the high school. That's not what it's for. I want to walk it, that's terrific, but it's not for cars or trucks. The design. The houses that they're planning are in the range of 2,500 to 3,000 square feet. They each should have driveways that are less than 2,000 square feet. Their plan is to try to make the impervious surface for each lot 20%. 20% is their goal. I think the highest they've gone right now is 28. So they are working on lessening their impervious footprint. The open land around the site, there's a 35% requirement, and their proposal at this point is 47%. The open space land will be owned by the homeowners association. The average lots that they were putting up there, they were attempting to get to 30,000 square feet, but because of the amount of buffer going around, they're somewhere in the 20s. It's mostly in the upper side of 20, not on the lower side. The right-of-way roadway belongs to the town. The road's going to be a public street, and they are looking for underground utilities, so it will meet all of our typical rules and regulations of the planning board for a regular subdivision.
Bill, how far along is the planning board in the process? Is it still at the beginning stages? Are we in the middle of the process? Or are there a lot of open issues that the board is still considering?
If I had to take a pie, I'd say probably a third.
Okay.
The planning board has looked at all of the issues. They understand what the issues are. The engineering has just been, that is their biggest task. They have worked on that 100-foot buffer so that they play with the numbers, so that originally it was a 20-foot no touch. Then they went to a 40-foot no touch. They have a 100-foot buffer zone that they're not going to do anything to. There will be, I think there's there's 3 places in that whole 100-foot that will be impacted. One of them has utilities going through it, but the utilities are already in it. when you get down to where the road takes a turn. The second one is there's an electric utility line that runs out to Countryside Lane. It's not that they're doing anything to any of the homes on Countryside Lane, but that electric line does have to be replaced, but there's an easement already in place for that electric line. Worst case, it may even help the people on Countryside Lane if they have to pull a new line through there. They don't know that yet. They haven't dug up that line to find out what the condition of that particular line is yet. And the third one is a stormwater detention basin right as you come in the town's portion of Governor Stoughton, that it'll still be on Pulte's 30 acres, but it's in that first 100 foot, and it's a stormwater detention basin. It's that particular plan that has taken all this time. I was supposed to have a plan today that shows the, what the 4 acres will look like. I don't have it yet. You'll get it as soon as I do.
So, Bill, the reason I asked that question is because at some point the planning board will need to hear from the trustees what our thoughts are on relocating the pest house to the 4 acres, using the men's alms house, possibly drainage. So, several months ago, I know the board, as Governor Stoughton trustees, talked about the fact that we need to be thinking about what to do with the 4 acres. Would it make sense to the board to have some kind of a neighborhood meeting outside of a regular meeting like this, just a night, almost like we had with the Henry's project, where we're soliciting input from the public? I guess a little different from the Henry's project, because that was more answering questions and giving a presentation, but soliciting input from the public as to what some creative ideas might be for the 4 acres, and what people's thoughts are about the relocation of the pest house and affordable housing at the men's alms house.
I would be, go ahead, Tom.
I've got 2 thoughts. Well, number one, yeah, I think that would hurt. You may come up with, you may get 50 people up there and get 50 different ideas, which I'm not sure is necessarily helpful, but because there's no predominance of anything. But what occurred to me too is, we're the Board of Selectmen, we're the trustees, we're not planners, I don't have a clue, and I'm not sure any of us really do, as to where to go with it. That I think we really need some help in terms of, A, the historic structures, what's, a real report, even if they pay some money for it, on what the condition of them is, what it would cost to fix them up. I guess Pulte will fix one of them. But, the other one, and then just, the best use of the property within the confines of the trust itself, and then the best use of the property, not considering the confines of, for the poor of, and so just give us some ideas and some things that would work and that we could.
Yeah, I agree. I think the more information we have at our hands, the better off we're going to be. But I think involving the community, involving the neighbors, and being transparent about this in what we want to do is our best bet. And I think that, whether we get good ideas or bad ideas, I think that it's always good to have that open line of communication. To listen. I think that, this has been going on for a long time, and I think we owe it to the people that are paying the taxes in the town to hear them and to involve them in part of the process.
There's also the master plan committee, which could be, we had a meeting last week, and I mentioned that this is probably going to be something that we'd be talking about soon, because the application is before the planning board, and they will need to know at some point what we think about the 2 affordable units in the men's alms house.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
That's a potential resource, that committee.
Yes.
It is, but I think that in June of 1999,
Yes.
a preservation architect went in and looked at the buildings. He came back with with a status of, does it have to be, is it 1, 2, or 3? 3 meaning it has to be done right now. 1 meaning you might have a little bit of time. He came up with a cost, and the cost of repairing the buildings in June of '99 was $350,000. And what did we do to those buildings since then?
Nothing.
Nothing. If anything, we've We've done.
So add inflation to that and you got $1 million.
We've done the absolute bare minimum in that we've secured the buildings. That's it. We've secured them to the outside. We have not secured them. Animals still have found their ways into the buildings. So we once a year go in and try to change whatever it is, how are they getting in, and fix that particular piece. But they get in faster than we can block them up.
Right.
We have not taken and spent any money doing this. I do think that we need a preservation architect to go and look at it, because when you start looking at the structures, the costs that were in this 1999, they're not today's costs. And the structural components have, the barn cannot be saved from what it is in this book here. The men's house has some serious water damage on the front wall that wasn't there a couple of years ago. Plus a raccoon got in and pulled the back gutters off, so that's another animal issue.
So, Bill, I think one of the issues is, in the last, well, ever since the purchase and sale was signed in 2011, there had to be that long process before the Attorney General and then the courts. So there's a reason that nothing really has been done on the 4 acres in recent years. There was a long period of time before where probably things could have been done. But regardless of that, I think one of the big questions is, if Pulte were to go ahead and build, and the trustees agreed, that's great, we want affordable housing units, let's put 2 in the men's almshouse, that leaves the main almshouse, which is the bigger building, with really no plan for that.
Right.
Can we do something that really addresses the combined buildings on the site?
Well, you're rather
And possibly the pest house, what do we do with that then?
The other thing you got to consider too, and because I was talking to Jack Dolly about this as we had our tour through the
Carberry Estate.
Carver Estate, because there are structures on that property that are either going to be demolished or could potentially be moved. They're good structures. So I asked him about the possibility of, what if we were to move those to the 4 acres for more affordable housing? And he said he'd do it, but he said it might cost you more to do that. You can remember, these don't have energy efficient windows, these don't have insulation, and that 300,000 probably isn't talking about any of that, stripping everything down, blowing in insulation. And even after you do that, the studs aren't enough to come up to today's standards. And you're going to put an affordable person in there that maybe can't
You're basically redoing the entire...
house, and you may never get it to today's energy efficiency standards. Probably won't. So, you got a thing that's going to cost more to heat, and you're going to put an affordable person in there.
It's cheaper to build it brand new than
Right.
remodel.
It might
bring
be.
something
It might
old.
be, yeah.
No, it is.
So the other component is with the historic nature of the buildings, and is it worth saying?
We did have a year or so ago, the town administrator might have a better memory of this than I do. We had, I think, a local architect in the town went in and we did a walkthrough and had some preliminary information as to,
Yes, that was set up through.
We had
through the town planner.
Right.
We had 2 local architects come in and they looked at the main house, they looked at the men's house and didn't really have anything to say. They did look at the main house. One of them came back with some numbers, and I think I want to say it was 3 units. There were no drawings at the time. We did have our DPW engineering interns come back and give us floor plans for both buildings. We have those, we gave those to the architects, and they still came back and, 3 to 4 units in the main house. And that's just off the top of his head. That wasn't something that he spent a lot of time.
Bill, I know we've all seen this 1999 report a couple of years ago when we did the sidewalk. Can you circulate it again to the board so everyone has it convenient and we can take another look at it? So obviously, whatever we do with the 4 acres, we have to go back out. There'd be an RFP process involved, there'd be an Attorney General approval involved, so there'd be a lot of stages
I guess we'd
to
need
this.
a ruling in terms of if we did affordable, does affordable constitute the poor of Milton? Quote unquote. I mean, there is no definition of
Well, it probably depends on how it's structured, and I know that's been a long discussion at different
It is.
times throughout the
Yeah.
town.
We spent.
The last few
on-
years.
On the Governor Stoughton Trust Land Committee, we spent nights debating
Definition
who are
of
the
poor.
poor. Yeah, who are the poor of the town, you know, is affordable poor?
So for the sake of the agenda, we don't want to get too down that rabbit hole, because that's a long discussion, and that's been an ongoing discussion. What's the sense of the board among trying to set up at least some kind of a public information, whether we have Pulte come in or we ask the planning director to explain, whether it's mid to late October, because we'd probably want to notice it in the newspaper, get enough notice out there to people that we're scheduling it, and have some kind of a presentation of what the issues are, what Pulte's proposing to do, and then see what ideas we might, and then possibly at the same time consider a restoration architect, find out what it might cost.
I'd rather keep Pulte out of the mix. Tim and I can take and pull that particular
that's
meeting
fine.
together. We can take, we'll put in what Pulte has suggested that they do, put 2 units into the men's house, and that would be a restored men's house. There's nothing on the inside. Part of the problem here is when you start looking at historical preservation, it's what's on the inside as much as what's on the outside. If it looks old on the outside, does it look old on the inside? As long as the two match up, then you have a historic structure. If it looks old on the outside and it's brand new inside, then it's no longer historic. Many times what we've done is we've gutted these houses. Another part to this particular set of buildings is, this was the poor farm. This was not a house that somebody at this table would want to go and live in.
Right.
This was a house of last resort. This is something that it was just the bare minimum. This wasn't luxury living. This was just the bare minimum. You had adults in with children in these rooms. There were many people stuffed in rooms. These were not, you know.
It was community housing, right? So it was-
Yeah, but so
that's
it
why
was
they're so
tight.
big.
Even though the building was big, it had that many people in it. So the inside of this house is not something that is, oh, how do we preserve it? There's not that much in there that has that preservation.
Okay, so we've got a lot of people here tonight. We need to move the agenda on. What's the sense, we can continue this we're meeting next Tuesday. We can have a follow-up discussion on it next Tuesday, or we can,
Well, can we do one thing? Because it was actually something that Laura brought up, and I think it's a good point. Can we get the damn barn down before it falls down?
let's talk with town council about whether we should be doing any, I want to make
Well,
sure we're...
It's a
Yeah.
risk. I mean,
It
it's-
has been for
Safety
quite a
issue.
while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a safety
I think we
issue.
got to get it down. I don't,
It's
Okay,
a
so
public
let's
safety
follow up
issue
on
that's been
that.
brought up at
I
the building
agree.
commissioner, so
Okay.
we're safe by that.
I'm in favor of having a community meeting and getting input and taking some
I am.
information into
But
it.
then I'd want to take it the rest of the way and get a master plan, what is the best use of the
Exactly.
property? And we're not, I don't think we're really in the position to do that ourselves.
So we could certainly involve the historical commission, the master plan committee, the planning board. But I know that at some point, the planning board's going to need to hear from us about the affordable units and the
Yep.
pest house. So, okay. All right. Bill, thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill.
And
See
so
what
should we
I
try to schedule that for mid to late October?
Sure.
Sure.
All right, so we'll adjourn the meeting of the Governor Stoughton trustees and call to order the meeting of the Board of Selectmen. And our first item is meeting minutes.
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes of August 24th, 2016, and September 6th, 2016, as written.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Future meeting dates, we have the 4th and the 18th, and the 25th, potentially if we need it.
As far as I know, those are okay for me.
Yep,
Okay,
okay.
good. All right, citizen speak. Do we have anyone tonight for citizen speak? Mr. Joe Henning.
Hi, I'm
Good
Phil
evening.
Joe Henning, 23 Parkwood Drive. I've sent 2 notes, 2 emails this week to the Board of Selectmen. And what I want to ask you for is the protection of the zoning bylaws that exist in the town. They were written in 1938. I had nothing to do with them, but I do ask for their fair enforcement. I think the situation that we find ourselves in is that there was a zoning bylaw amendment passed again in February 2016. It gave the planning board the right to issue a special permit to operate certain businesses that would not ordinarily be allowed to operate in a residential zone. It allowed them to operate under certain conditions. And the special permit that was issued spells out certain protections for the neighbors, primarily me. And they have to do with flooding, they have to do with noise, and they have to do with landscaping. And from my perspective, from my home, I don't see that any of the protections that were offered to me in the bylaw amendment have been given to me. And there was a zoning board of appeals meeting last week, and the zoning board of appeals ruled that it is the responsibility of the building commissioner to issue an occupancy permit for, let's call it landscaping and wood distribution. He must issue an occupancy permit, and he cannot do that until the mitigation measures spelled out in the special permit have been completed. And so where do we find ourselves? We find ourselves at the point where Judge Wilson ruled that wood distribution and landscaping are not permitted at 270 Hillside Street. They're not permitted until the building commissioner issues the occupancy permit. And again, he can't do that until the mitigation that was promised to me in the zoning bylaw amendment is actually completed. And so the emails that I sent you, the two of them this week, have to do with the fact that I believe that those businesses have begun, well, I believe they've never stopped, but actually the zoning board of appeals has made it clear that I get my protections first. And I think that was really the intent of town meeting. So I want to ask in person, that's why I came here tonight, for the town to take a very tight construction on all of the things that have happened. And I want the protections of the zoning bylaws that are in effect for this town. And I actually, I guess, am demanding those. I'm demanding those protections from you. I got a note from my attorney, and I want to just read a couple of short sentences. He said, in cases where you and John win before the ZBA and Thayer appeals, the town does not take the laboring oar in the litigation to uphold the ZBA's decision. However, in cases where you appeal the planning board decisions in favor of Thayer, the town does take the laboring oar in the litigation and allows Thayer to piggyback on its efforts. There is no rational reason for such disparate treatment, and that the town's conscious, deliberate, and repeated choice to put Thayer's interest over yours constitutes a violation of your equal protection rights. And that's the way I see it. So I guess I want to make it perfectly clear that I am not afraid to take this town to court. And if the town does not protect me in line with the laws that have been passed by this town, that's what I'll do, just to make it clear. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Johanning. Is there anyone else tonight for citizen speak? Okay, then seeing none, the next item on our agenda is a meeting with our chair of the Board of Library Trustees. No, I'm sorry. If you can wait 1 minute, I'm jumping ahead a little too quickly. It's a conference with Robert Wolf of Building Race Relations. Is Mr. Wolf here?
I have a colleague.
Good evening,
with
Mr.
me.
Wolf.
Good evening. Richard Pinderhughes
Good evening.
with me,
Good evening.
You don't,
and also not sitting here, but Ron Bell.
Would you like to come up to the table, sir? We can pull up another chair.
Do you, is it practice to give your address?
Yes, if you could all just, again, give your name and address so we make sure we get it in our minutes.
Okay.
I was a bigger chair,
On
yeah.
TV.
Kind of blend in.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes, he's our television, he's also on public access television at various times. And I'm Bob Wolf, or Robert Wolf, at 239 Highland Street.
Thank you.
Milton.
Oh, I'm Ron Bell, 172 Blue Hill Avenue, 138. I used to live on Elliott Street. I've been living around here for 20 years, and this is only like my third time being here.
Really?
Yeah.
We're just giving you an address.
I don't know, I mean, okay, I'm not,
Not a history, right?
okay, not the history, I'm just giving stories.
Rick Pinderhughes, and I'm at 5 Kaler Ave.
Thank you. Well, welcome all.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So I have been sitting, watching television, hearing from my friends, et cetera, here in Milton, and I grew very concerned about our current situation here in the United States. And since I live in Milton, I became concerned with what's going on here. And I've heard stories, I've heard about harassment, I've heard about profiling and so forth. And I really don't want to see anyone killed here, you know, like it's happened in other towns. So, and I have a strange experience because I have learned in my lifetime that where people have made a real attempt to get to know other people who are different from them and try to undo racism and other aspects of treating people with differences differently than they would treat themselves. That if they avoid that, everyone is the better for it. And so I'm interested in seeing the United States, and Milton, of course, develop real actions that make a paradigm change in the way people are treated, both in Milton and in the rest of the United States. So I had this idea that we could get people together to talk. That's all, to talk. And I went to Milton Neighbors on Facebook with it and found that there were quite a number of people. Within just a couple of days, I had 20 people who were all interested in this. And half that number met and began a planning and organizing committee to get this happening. And we named it Milton Dialogues, Building Race Relations, to bring people together of different races, ethnicities, et cetera, and to share our feelings and our thoughts and our experiences, or as Ron just said, our stories, striving to ensure that we don't continue profiling in our streets or harassing in our schools or have some real catastrophe in our town. We do not want that. And the first of the Milton Dialogue starts on the 17th of October at the library, which, by the way, I want to thank all of you who are to some extent responsible for the library. It is one of the wonderful places in town for all kinds of reasons, but especially because it's considered accessible by everyone, as near as I can tell. I mean, we may find somebody who won't come to the library, but I don't think so.
We have the chair of the library trustees in the audience.
Oh,
so
we do? Okay,
I'm sure
good.
he's happy to hear that.
I hope I can shake his hand later. I use it a lot. You know, at my age, you need a library. So I just know that diversity is a gift, it is a blessing, and I want to spread it around, okay? So I want to introduce Rick Pinderhughes, who is Director of Programs and a consultant at Visions. We have this wonderful firm close by in Dorchester that works all over the country on race relations and diversity. And Rick is one of the Milton Dialogues facilitators. And I should explain that Ron is a member of the Planning and organizing committee
They like to tell stories.
who likes to tell stories. And if you want to ask us questions, we're willing to do that, but we're also willing to get up and go to the Red Sox game
That's why he's rushing.
on TV. But Rick, do you have something else you want to say?
Well, I just wanted to add that diversity is a wonderful thing, and it's one thing, and being able to embrace that is a whole nother story. Yes, people have contact in this town. People walk by each other, they have conversations, they're talking about the Red Sox, they're talking about the Patriots, and there's very little authentic contact around issues of race, as well as other issues. I mean, this isn't just about race, and we're working through the lens of race to start, because this is, as you can tell, the overarching umbrella of what we're dealing with in this country is very powerful, and really speaks for us to, it screams for us to be paying attention to it. So how we're doing that is actually getting people together to have a conversation, actually is developing a skill that people often don't have, which is literally talking about this. And practicing that and feeling less uncomfortable about it and growing into a way that they're going to pass it on. We're calling this an initiative. We're not calling this a project. And the way I like to see an initiative is that this is going to keep going. We're looking at folks who are going to be interested in coming to this and having these brief modules of dialogues, and then wanting to either pass it on to other folks or perhaps get deeper in conversation moving forward. So this is the kind of virus I think is a really good one. If we think about racism as a virus, we can think about this as a kind of a healing one, where this can hopefully become infectious in the community.
I like that.
I think it's a wonderful idea. I mean, the concept is great. Anything that will just spur on the, that conversation, that, getting to know one another. Because I think you're right, but by knowing each other, you break down a lot of those walls and barriers. And my sense is that the younger, we are a diverse community in Milton. We weren't always, but I think we are at this point. So my sense is that the younger people in the town, the school-age children, have kind of grown up together, and that there probably is more, communication and interaction between the races there. But at my age, not as much.
Yeah.
And
right.
If I can interject, because I do have a 16-year-old. He went to the Pierce, the Glover, and now he's at Blue Hill Regional Technical, which is in Canton, which is under Milton Public Schools.
It's one of our
Which I
schools.
didn't realize that
Yeah.
until he went there. But the reason why I said that, as I was telling my story, I lived on the other side of Milton, on Elliott Street. I was a former senior advisor for Governor Deval Patrick. I've been to every city and town in the Commonwealth, 351 cities and towns. I did most of my work outside of Milton because Deval was from Milton. I didn't even know Deval lived down the street from me. All right, that's how it is. And particularly for Black people, I work here. I live here, but I work outside of Milton. This is the first time that I've ever been doing some work in Milton, because I see a lot of the high school kids who need something to do, like my son. They go down to Mattapan, which they've developed a neighborhood called Milton Pan, because a lot of the kids, Black kids, on the other side where I live, which is now 138, which is predominantly Black people. I've been doing outreach for a program called Milton Reflective, which is in collaboration with Milton Dialogue. And Katie Pearl was here, I understand, and she gave you an
Yes.
overview with that. And we were talking to her on Skype. She's been at our meetings through Skype, thanks to Rick. But what I'm saying, there is a level of segregation. I've been standing out, handing out flyers, and I was like, wow, where all these Black folks come from? But they're on the other side of Milton, Blue Hill Ave Parkway, and that's the real deal. So, people need to face the truth, and that's what's happening. People in Milton feel disconnected, and particularly the Black people. I'm trying to bring diversity. Milton Access TV, I did not know that was there. That is a gem. Do folks know where Milton Access TV is located? Behind the PS school? A lot of the teachers don't. I was like, where's this place? And they were like, what? Aren't you my son's old teacher? You right in the school? You don't know about this? That's not good. But we can turn this bad into good, right? We can start communicating. Celebrate Milton is Sunday.
Yes.
I have never been to Celebrate Milton. when they said it's gonna be at the town hall, I was like, where's the town hall at? Right? But no, I've been here, because I'm so used to city hall. When you said town hall, I was like, you mean the building where I bring my voter registration when I change my registration? So there's a lot of people like me that feel the same way. I didn't realize Common lives over here, Judge Ireland. All these folks that I met through the campaign, through Governor Patrick's office, they live in Milton. So I'm reaching out to people so that we can build relationships between black and white, between black and blue, because we've had problems with racial profiling. I was on a racial profiling committee with Chief, what's it, Hearns?
Yeah.
Kevin
Kevin
I was here in 97, so that was it.
Yes.
Today on my show, I had Mark Conrad, who's a Miltonian. He's the former chair of the parole board, as well as a former Milton police officer. And we was talking about the importance of building race relations between police and young people. So I'll leave you with that as I tell my story, because I see you touching me.
Well,
Okay.
I was-
You know I'm a preacher, too. So,
I was about to say that with the good graces of the chair,
Okay.
we should depart.
I think she was a little interested in what I was
It was
saying.
very interesting,
But I think
very
this is so
interesting.
important.
She is.
And
I
I'm
think
gonna,
someone wants to watch a Red Sox game.
that's what it is. That's what it is. That's
Are
it.
there questions that you have?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you have any questions?
I'm looking
So-
forward to actually going and.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too, and I spent some time working for Mayor Menino in Boston, was a liaison to Northeastern Center for Sport and Society with Dr. Lapchek.
With
Worked
Pete
on
Roby
race, yeah, Pete Roby, and
Okay.
worked on
All right,
race
stop dropping
relations.
names.
And so there is an enormous amount of value, and not just, we have our young kids who are in a diverse environment, which is great, but for older people in this community to get to know each other and get to know each other's cultures and to be able to talk to each other, and not just a hello on the street, but to be able to have real conversations, and I think you guys are on the right path here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So is it a limited number of people who can take part in this because of the room that you're in, or is this open to everyone?
Well, we want to work with groups of 20 at a time. However, my picture is that we could do, and it's a 4-session event, 2 hours on 4 successive Monday nights right now. Anyway, that's the way it's scheduled. But we will be very happy to have a second one of these 4 sessions and a third and fourth. And well, let me see. I don't know how much to tell you. This is my 4th nonprofit corporation that I've started. I have a history in other towns and New York City. And so I'm immediately interested in creating a not-for-profit corporation and continuing this. I mean, it's taken us, 800 years at least to get here. And this is not going to be solved immediately, although at 78, I want it to speed up. It's much, things are happening that shouldn't be happening, and so it's got to speed up. But I think that you should know that we're hoping to be around, doing this.
Well, how about coming back after you get through your initial 4-week series?
We'd love to.
Coming back
We'd
and
love
telling us
to,
how it
yes.
went and
Absolutely.
advertising your next
Well,
series.
thank you.
That's a
Yes,
great idea.
Okay. Now,
Thank you.
do you all have flyers?
We have a copy
Yes,
of one
we
in
do.
our notes.
Yes,
You have
right.
enough?
We do.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay?
And
very
and
good.
also,
Thank you
also
very much.
on Sunday at 2 o'clock, we're having a story circle so folks can get to know each other through Milton reflecting. So if folks can participate, it'd be great.
And that's at Celebrate Milton.
She already tell you, all right, y'all all right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Great night. Thanks
Thank
so
you all
much.
very much. Thank you. All right, then the next item is an update from the chair of our Board of Library Trustees. And we're joined by
Hi, Frank.
Frank Schroeder.
Frank.
Good evening, Frank.
Hi, everybody.
Sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit there.
That's all right. How's it? I'm so happy to be here.
He used to sit through these for a long time. Now he gets to come right up.
I know. Everybody good?
Everybody's great.
I'm gonna give Emery a second here.
Thank you again. Good night.
Okay, good to go here. I'm Frank Schroeth. I'm the chair of the Milton Library Board of Trustees. And I wanted to provide you with a couple of updates, and I also wanted to give a shout out and some thank yous. And I wasn't planning on this one. I want to give a thank you to Mr. Wolf for his kind words regarding the library and its ability to be an enabler for these types of events and forums and committees to meet and help expand what the kind of good work he's obviously doing. So that it's just fantastic to make that opportunity available to them. First, and I apologize for reading from some notes, but I don't want to forget some of what I came here to say. We held a public forum recently to solicit input with regard to the Kidder Building. As you're aware, the trustees are beginning the process of how we want to leverage this asset to better meet the needs of the library's mission. And 2 points I want to emphasize. We didn't get much of a turnout, quite frankly. But 2 points that I want to emphasize. One is that the term with the Discovery Schoolhouse was the current tenants of that building. That is going to run its full term. And so to the extent that there was any anxiety from the children, the parents, or the administration there, I just want to put that to bed. Second, I want to be clear that we are going to be engaged with all the vested parties as we work through this process. So that would include the Board of Selectmen, it would include the Master Plan Implementation Committee, and of course, it would include the public. So, and as you know all too well, any change in property and its development is a very, very long process. So we just want to tee this up and get the thing started, but it's going to be quite some time.
Frank, before you go on,
Yes.
can I ask you, since you had a public forum, we were just talking about having some kind of a public forum for Governor Stoughton, did you advertise it, or?
We did, Madam Chair. Through the Milton Neighbors, through the Milton Times, through Milton Access TV, I'm not sure what more we could have done to advertise this forum taking place.
And for the people who were there, did they give some suggestions?
No. Honestly, the only person who appeared was a recent addition to the Milton Library Foundation, who thought that there was a great opportunity for that part of town to develop something, and she just wanted to hear what people had to say. So it is an opportunity. We are eager for public input. Maybe it was a little too premature. Maybe people want to hear a plan before to something they react to. I'm not sure.
Maybe we'll find ourselves in the same situation with the farm.
But that's that. Second is you're likely to see construction equipment on the grounds of the library at the end of this week. We have contracted to have a turnaround put into the library that will enable patrons to exit and enter the parking area without going out onto Canton Ave.
Good.
That is, as you know, a very dangerous spot, especially sort of between 4 and 6 in the afternoon. This will alleviate the need for people to do that who are looking for a place to park and hopefully reduce any further potential accidents. The expectation is the work will be done in about 2 to 3 weeks. And the library will remain open throughout that period, and the parking lot will be accessible. They'll use a small corner of the lot for the staging that they need to do. Which brings me to my first shout out and thank you, which is to John Thompson of the DPW. That guy is amazing.
That's a good job.
Absolutely amazing. I mean, as you know him, he's a modest guy, but he's been very helpful to us throughout this process. And as the chair, I'm terribly grateful to him for helping shepherd this along. The next is to Andrea Gordon, who together with the Park Department and with the Blue Hills Regional Tech, she brought the concept of little free libraries here to the town that you've seen sprinkled throughout
yeah.
the parks.
Great addition.
That's kind of a national trend, isn't it?
It is,
Yeah.
it is, Tom. I'm not sure where it started, but everyone from private citizens to nonprofit organizations, basically anybody, the concept is you build a little kiosk and you give a book and you take a book. And again, I travel through Turner's Pond quite a bit, and the activity there has been fairly significant. I mean, the books are actually changing, and
And there's been no vandalism, no...
no, none at all. The reception to date has been very positive. It was Andrea who had the concept of bringing it and worked with Blue Hills. Mr. Foley, who runs the woodworking shop at Blue Hills Regional Tech, was in his class, were fantastic. They built all those. The park department actually helped us with the installation. The park commissioners, voted to allow these things to be present in the parks. We also have one at Cunningham, so we had to sort of work with that in addition. And it's a great example of a collaboration between ourselves, the park department, Blue Hills Regional Tech. It also assists in the library's strategic goals, which is to expand beyond the walls of the library and to offer an amenity to the town that's where they happen to travel. And the last thing I wanted to do is just read a proclamation that the board voted on at their last meeting. Again, this is sort of a I don't know, major thank you. So the proclamation reads, whereas Banned Books started in 1982 is an annual celebration of the freedom to read that ends this year on October 1, 2016, and whereas librarians, booksellers, teachers, and countless others take this opportunity during Banned Books Week to highlight the importance of intellectual freedom and remind us not to take this precious democratic freedom for granted. And whereas Teen Read Week started in 1998 is celebrated the third full week in October every year, this year, October 9th through the 15th. And whereas Teen Read Week is a national literacy initiative of the Young Adult Library Services Association that is aimed at teens, their parents, librarians, educators, booksellers, and other concerned adults. And whereas the continuing message of Teen Read Week initiative is to encourage 12 to 18-year-olds to read for the fun of it. And whereas National Friends of Libraries Week on October 16th through 22nd, 2016, provide opportunities to celebrate friends, promoting the group in the community, raising awareness and increasing membership, and also giving libraries and boards of trustees the opportunity to recognize the friends for their help and support of the library. And whereas the Milton Library Foundation has chosen October for their house parties to raise funds in support of the Milton Public Library, be it resolved that the Milton Library Board of Trustees recognizes the enthusiastic and unfailing support for the library from the Friends of the Milton Public Library and the Milton Library Foundation and declares October 2016 Milton Public Library Month.
That's wonderful.
And that's
That
it.
is great.
It certainly is a
So-
valuable resource in the community. As
It
the
really
previous
is.
speakers just said, it's really become a center point, I think, for the community.
Well, and yeah, we're proud of it, we're proud of the staff, we're proud of, and we just want to keep it going. So thanks so much for affording me the time to speak.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks for
Thank
everything
you
you
for the
guys do.
updates and
Thank
letting
you,
us
Frank.
know. Good evening. All right, number 7 on our agenda is a sign for Fuller Village. We have the Executive Director of Fuller Village, Deborah Felton.
Hi, Deborah.
Good evening, Deborah.
Hey, Deborah, how are you?
And the Planning Director, I think, is also
Very
going
good.
to join us. Mr. Clark. Good evening.
I'm Deborah Felton. I'm the Executive Director at Fuller Village. And we filed a sign application and went before the sign review committee. And after back and forth and some suggestions and questions, I think we have come up with a sign. We want to put a granite sign in front of the stone wall on Route 138. We have adopted that piece of property from the state, and the state is just waiting to see if we get approval for the sign. It is going to be up against the stone wall. I think we have the same pictures, very similar to Curry College's sign. It will be like this with our little trademark swish there in blue. And I think Bill has some more information to explain it. It will sit right in front of the stone wall.
The sign's like 80 feet off of the pavement. I have talked to the district engineer for District 6, Walter Heller. He's waiting to hear if the selectmen say yes, he is going to say yes, and he's going to allow the sign there. I know that Deborah's correct in that she said that she and Fuller Village have adopted the area in front of the wall, so they're the ones that cut it and maintain the grass up there, so this is just one more piece to it.
So will it be a wood sign on granite?
Granite.
No,
Or
the granite.
Granite sign or granite
It's
post?
a solid granite sign,
not
And it's an
going
unlit
anywhere.
sign.
and it's an unlit sign.
Right.
Looks good.
Looks great.
Doesn't need lights in that corner.
And we had a memo from the sign review committee, which I thought was very thorough,
In
and,
support.
yes, in support.
So I'll make a motion to approve the sign for Fuller Village at the intersection of Brush Hill Road and Blue Hill Avenue as specified by the sign review committee.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? Then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you,
thank you
Deborah.
very much.
Good luck.
Good to see you
Good luck
all.
with it. We are on to number 8, which is the Henry's demolition extension. Back in June, the board extended the deadline for the Henry's demolition to September 30th, where an application is pending before the planning board. The Conservation Commission will also need to be a proceeding before the Conservation Commission. So I'm going to recommend to the board that we extend the deadline until December 31st, because we are going to have some, we need to finish out the planning board process. We're still in the process of negotiating an agreement and the conservation process, and then we have to put all the demolition steps in place. So I think it makes sense to extend it to year end and continue to work through what we're working through.
Yeah.
Make sense to the board?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I'd obviously like to see it happen a lot quicker than that.
Yes.
But I'd be okay with that deadline.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to extend the deadline for the concurrent demolition of the town-owned property at 0 Central Avenue and the Carrick Realty Trust property at 131 Elliott Street from September 30th, 2016 to December 31st, 2016.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, unanimous. Next is an update from our Logan and Massport Community Advisory Committee representative, Cindy Christensen.
Hey, Sandy.
Hey, Cindy, how are you?
Cindy?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
My understanding is we had a bit of communication problem about the graphics. I think you might have access to them, but I don't think we've got them for the screen.
We do?
Or do we?
We put them up, we have them uploaded now.
So the,
Good.
Okay.
oh, thank you. The purpose of the graphics is to show you what I think of as handwriting on the wall for what's happening as far as Logan operations go. The first graphic, this graphic shows total number of jet arrivals at Logan. So it's it's a rolling total of the prior 12 months. So every spot on there is a 12-month total, and you can see that it's increasing. And of course, this only shows arrivals. There's about 165,000 arrivals per year in a 12-month period now, but there'll be an equal number of, or about an equal number of departures too. I'm only showing you arrivals. The second graphic, and the point that the next 4 graphics make, which I think are important for Milton to understand, is that along with the increase in operations at Logan, the already heavily used runways have a higher increase. And that means other runways are also going down. So this next graphic shows the change in the number of arrivals over the past 12 months compared to the 12-month period before that. So it's like a yearly increase, and it rolls every month, the total rolls. So on the left, you'll see 4L and 4R, and they've had increases of 878 compared to 6,000, and 6,281 at 4R. Oh, on the far right is the total number of increases in a one-year period, and that's 11,000. So the thing that's important is there's a clear picture of the operations at Logan increasing in the configurations that tend to travel from northeast to southwest and vice versa, compared to the configurations that go from northwest to southeast. The ones from northwest, so Belmont, Cambridge area, to the southeast, Hull, basically Hull, those tend to be decreasing, whereas the operations and configuration choices that go from Milton up to Marblehead and vice versa, those are increasing. And there's a strong pattern of that. And good infrastructure reasons for why that's needed at Logan. The next graphic just gives the total numbers in the 12-month period prior to the current 12-month period. And I tried to designate the different configurations there so that you could get a feel for that. The next graph shows, and these are statistics that I'm using more and more. The next graph shows on the far right the total number of operations. And again, this is just arrivals, but the same applies to departures. Total number of arrivals is up by about 7% at Logan, whereas the arrivals to 4L and 4R is up almost double that, 13% and 14%. The statistics also show that it's not merely that they're just shifting more to 4L, they're increasing both arrival paths. And it's about 13 to 14%. The other thing to notice that the 15R, the bar that goes very far down, is seldom used to begin with, so the percentage decrease is not as significant as it might look, but the important one is the 33L. That's the one that goes from northwest to southeast, and that's also had a decrease. And then the final graph is a little bit more difficult to see, but this is a rolling total of the change in arrivals to the different runway paths. And what you notice below the horizontal line at 0, the two runway configurations below that, the 15R and the 33L, are the ones that go from northwest to southeast, to the point that I'm trying to make. The ones above that are the ones that go from southwest to northeast. I'm now going to move on to the Massport CAC topic. There was supposed to be a meeting tomorrow that was determined there wouldn't be a quorum, and so that's not happening. This will continue to be a problem for the Massport CAC. There's about 35 towns and cities represented on that, and some as far away as Worcester. So it's going to be a continuing problem for that. So basically the way it's operating now is there's an executive committee making a lot of the decisions and moving things forward. They have formed 3 subcommittees, an operations committee, a health committee, and a communications committee. I'm on the health committee. The committee that we have to pay attention to, as far as, the health is important, but the operations is where a lot of the important decisions are going to be made. And unfortunately, between the executive committee and the operations committee, there's about 12 individuals, so 12 people representing different cities and towns. 10 of those 12 also live along that corridor. They represent towns around that northwest, southeast corridor that I pointed out in the graphics is what's seeing the less increase in operations. So it's something Milton really needs to keep track of and pay attention to. Moving on to the Logan CAC, there was supposed to be a Logan CAC meeting on Thursday. That's been canceled because of we won't have a quorum. That was just last night about midnight we got something about that. This is where most of the action is happening right now. The FAA has decided that as of September 30th, they're closing down the Logan CAC, or at least the funding for that. The president of the Logan CAC is not in agreement with that and is still scheduling meetings. So there's a lot of discourse in that committee right now. But we don't have a runway use plan, and that's what the FAA wants, and I don't know what they're going to decide to do, given 9/30 is coming, September 30th is coming up, and we don't have a runway use plan. We do have, one of the things that's been beneficial to the committee members, but also I think to Milton, is we are getting more statistics and things like flight track maps, so we can see where the planes are going. So that's been a plus as far as the Logan CAC. It also was reported recently that the noise contour software that's now required, it's new, the FAA requires this new software, is giving different results than the old software did. So one of the things they're having to do is to go back, even for the 4L noise analysis that we all saw I don't know, well over a year ago now. They're having to redo that because I don't know how big of differences there are, but there are differences reported by Massport. The FAA was at that meeting. They said the same thing. They said they don't really know why there are these differences. There's one thing that I'm working on regarding runway 27 departures. I talked to the person that runs one of the towers at this last meeting, and he said that they try to not start 27 departures until 7 a.m., and we know that that's not the case. They start at 5. So we do have some data, and some members from the ANAC are helping me get that together so that we can at least say, yeah, try to do 7. That would be great for the residents of our town, but you're not doing it now. And that's all I have, unless you have questions.
Just that we brought to the attention of the town's attorney, Karis North, who's a colleague of John Flynn, the issue with the September 30th and the CAC issues. So she's aware of it and is talking with Cindy and talking with the town administrator and me about it. Questions or comments for Cindy Christensen?
I mean,
The numbers are
we
the
keep
numbers.
working.
Yeah, it's, it'll be really interesting to see what happens with the Logan CAC. There's so much. I mean, you can just tell there's people that just, on the committee that just want the Massport CAC to take it over. The problem with that is the FAA has no direct connection to the Massport CAC, so it's hard to know. It was reported that the FAA legal department determined that they've done everything they need to do to satisfy the ROD as far as runway use. And we don't have a plan, so.
That's disappointing.
Very frustrating.
It is, it's just, it's bizarre.
Cindy, if you want to stay for the next item as well, we have,
Okay.
which is a letter to the airlines, which are,
Okay.
you're a member of the Airplane Noise Advisory Committee, and they've put this letter forward. Before we get to that, I just wanted to report out 2 things to the public. One is that the board has retained a former FAA attorney, Rebecca McPherson, who will be assisting us going forward with legal matters and giving us some advice. We have a very good environmental attorney from Town Council's office who's been working with us and who will still be very much involved. We're just adding to the team. And the second item is that the FAA has contacted us after our most recent letter to them and has offered to set up a follow-up meeting. So we're in the process of trying to schedule that, and we'll hope to have more to report on that at a later date. And I want to thank Mike Andrusino for putting us in touch with Rebecca. Mike is the alternate member of the Logan Airport CAC and also a member of the Airplane Committee. And he had the initial outreach to Rebecca and was very helpful in referring the town administrator and myself to talk with her over the summer. So the next item is a letter to the airlines, and we've previously discussed this letter was drafted by the Airplane Committee. We have I think we have one in the package. Do we have others? There must be a stack of them.
Yes.
Okay. So we have it's the same letter going to all of the airlines. And this is regarding the vortex generators.
So I'll make a motion to approve and sign letters to the airlines servicing Logan Airport with Airbus A320 planes advocating the use of vortex generators.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thought it was a good letter. And
that's-
It was a very good letter.
Very
Well,
solid.
and what's really nice about it is it doesn't just help Milton if they would do this. That
Helps everyone.
it
The whole
you know,
country.
our friends in Marblehead who get arrivals will appreciate that you're doing this. So thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
well, thank
that
you,
was good
Cindy.
work by the
Appreciate your
Airplane
effort.
Noise Committee
Yeah.
and by you, Cindy, on both CACs. Hopefully they'll get a quorum, especially the Massport one. That seems to be an ongoing issue.
Yeah, it does, yeah, you're right.
All right, thank you.
All right,
Thank you
thank you
very
very much. Number 11 on our agenda is a Capital Committee additional recommendation. And we have the town accountant, Amy Dexter. Amy, would you like to join us?
You, right on time.
Perfect timing. Would you like to discuss this item, Amy?
Sure. So the Board of Parks Commissioners and the Director of the Park and Rec Department came to me as co-chair of the Capital Committee and submitted a need for a truck, a dump truck. The dump truck that they had in service was, I believe it was
17 years old.
17 or 18 years old. It was extremely rusted out, and the engine blew. So they're without a truck, which significantly hinders their operation. So they came with a special request, which is out of the ordinary, the way the capital committee normally plans things out. This would have been discussed last year. It was in the plan for last year, but it wasn't for FY17, so it needed to get pulled in to the current year.
Wow.
So this recommendation is to replace that one-ton dump truck at a approximate cost of $49,142. When the capital committee took this under consideration, they've, how do I word this? The recommendation was that the Parks Department that they lease this vehicle, that they pay for the down payment as well as any lease payments due on FY17 out of the revolving fund, which is the revolving fund related to the use of the parks, not the recreation revolving fund, which this would be an appropriate use of funds from that revolving fund because the use of it in the warrant is to maintain the fields, and they need the truck to do so. So that's the recommendation of the committee. I do want to add that there's been a lot of discussion over the last couple of years of trying to bring departments together and boards and committees together to try to work together for the better of the town, I guess. That's not exactly what I mean, but yeah. So Dave, the Parks Director, did go to DPW and discuss, do you guys have a vehicle we can use at least to get us through until next fiscal year? There was no vehicle, a dump truck available to them, but they did talk about it. They did try to attempt to do something like that, but there just wasn't a vehicle for them to lend or to give them.
The concern with the capital committee was, and we did talk, I think, rather sternly, that, this really, it's an emergency in the sense, yeah, you need a truck, but the truck's 17 years old. And why wasn't it on a planned replacement? And he said, well, it was. We have a plan to replace equipment, but other things keep popping up, so we keep pushing it away. So.
What you mean, was it in one of the later years?
Right. Well, it'll show up, and then and then it, as a year out, and then the next year it's another year out, and another year out, and another year out.
Oh.
So it wasn't listed as a priority. The last many years, the priority of the Parks Department has been the replacement of the second set of tennis courts down at Kelly Field. I did talk to Dave, and we're going to work together on his capital plan this year to say he shouldn't be, or not he, that if they feel that they have a strong need for the courts and a vehicle in the same fiscal year, they can certainly submit that and let the capital committee determine what the town can afford to fund and what not. And I think through their process, they were trying to spread it out over the 5 years. I think the intentions there were good. I think they just didn't understand fully the process that the capital committee goes through, and that if they have a strong need for more than one thing in a certain fiscal year, they should truly put it there and let the capital committee work through the funding and decide through discussions with them what's a priority and to be funded. And I think they tried to do some of that on their own through their own planning process. And I think that they truly felt they could get another year out of that truck, and then it just didn't happen.
And that's the problem, that there should be a planned replacement, a replacement plan for at least all vehicles, if not all, even other, equipment with moving parts to it. Proper maintenance schedule,
Yeah.
and then a vehicle inventory. That's one of the things we said. We want to see a vehicle, starting with a vehicle inventory, every single vehicle in the town, its age, its condition, its, original estimated useful life. And at least so we can look through it and say, hey, you've got to do something,
Proper care is so important.
Yeah,
with
the maintenance is the
vehicles.
other
Right,
thing.
the maintenance. But-
And that was the other concern too, and it kind of runs to the, and I told, I don't know if Amy talked to Anne Marie about it, but and it's come from more than one person. They said, well, we can't take it to DPW motor pool because we need the truck, and if we bring it over there for maintenance, it's going to sit there for 4 weeks before we even see it again. And we hear that so clearly there is a need, because it's crazy. They send it out to a garage. We probably pay more
Right, than doing it internally.
than doing it internally. So, there's clearly a need for more help at the DPW garage.
Right.
So,
I guess the good news is that, the town administrator's powers now include not only proposing an operating budget, which we'll get to in the next item, but also a capital budget. So
Yeah.
that's a power that didn't exist last
Right,
year.
that's
And
true.
that exists this year. And it sounds like, our management team of the town administrator and the town accountant at least came up with a way to address the emergency situation here for the park department in a good way. But going forward, hopefully that will get alleviated as the town administrator's meeting with the department heads and presenting a plan to the capital committee.
And then,
And Mr. Hurley, if I could just mention, Mr. Hurley, the vehicle inventory has begun,
good.
yes.
Okay.
So you shall see that soon.
yeah, and if I could just add one thing, because the recommendation is to pay it out of existing funds, I believe that they can go ahead once this committee or this board approves the recommendation without going to town meeting, because they're not asking for an appropriation. And we did talk to Mr. Flynn, town council, about that, and he agreed, since it was being funded out of a revolving fund,
Okay.
it didn't have to go to town meeting for the appropriation.
Well, thank you for all your help and assistance in this.
You're welcome.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation of the Capital Committee to purchase a one-ton dump truck for the Park Department in the amount of $49,142.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Amy. Okay, we're on to a discussion of the FY18 budget. And the town administrator may want to speak to the process a little bit. I can report to our board.
Bring Amy up for this too, or?
Yes.
Sure.
Amy, do you want to stay for the discussion on the operating budget? You can feel free to join us at the table or stay in here if you'd rather sit there.
I was just going to stay to listen, but.
Okay. I had just to report to the board before the town administrator speaks. I had an initial conversation with the chair of the school committee and a very brief conversation with the warrant committee chair. We're hoping to set something up for next week to talk in a little more detail, because they both were interested in hearing our thoughts on the process and where we're at with the budget. And so I went over with both of them the fact that the town administrator now is charged with preparing and presenting an operating budget as well as a capital budget to the warrant committee and this board. And we still have the bylaws that are in place that sets out the timeline for when budgets are due, which I'm sure the town administrator will speak to. But it seems that what she probably needs from us tonight is a discussion of whether we would support two budgets, because that was the plan last year, and late in the process, because of some good news on state aid, and Tom, all your work on stormwater, in handling that in a different way rather than through the operating budget. We didn't need to seek a contingent budget last year, but the assumption of everyone involved last year was that we would need to seek one this year.
That's absolutely correct, Madam Chair. What I am looking for is some direction from this board. I am meeting with department heads tomorrow. I cannot believe we are already starting fiscal 18 budget, which I did not even think I was going to be involved in, let alone. But I do need a little bit of direction. As Madam Chair said last year, we did create a contingent, non-contingent budget. We were able to balance a non-contingent budget without any cuts to any staffing cuts to any department. So we did abandon moving forward with a contingent budget for fiscal 17. That being said, I need to know where you stand on fiscal 18, if you would like me to have direct department heads to create a contingent and a non-contingent budget.
I think we kind of have been every year anyways, to a degree. I mean, we're creating a level service and then a level dollar in essence. And,
Well,
that's
just-
always been done. I mean,
Usually we just create one number, it's just a level service budget, and then a wish list, and then we kind of build
I
if
thought
we
we-
can.
last
But
year
it was
we had
only
the-
last year we had the
oh, we
two.
did the year before, too.
I don't believe we did it the year before. I think it was last year was our first
I think we've been
template.
doing, I recall it for a while, to be honest, but where, we were seeing what level service would look like, and that's, in my mind, that's what we should do again. Start out with level dollar and then build up to what is it going to take to get to level service.
Well, last year, the way we approached it was we did a dollar budget plus inflation. So the level dollar budget was what you got in the previous year, and for salary and wage, you included any step and longevity increases were applicable, and in your general expenses, you included any contractual obligations that you knew
That's fine.
were increasing.
Yeah, that's fine.
Then the second budget was what we called a needs-based budget, and what we asked departments to do was to take a real look at their departments from a bottom-up perspective and build their budget as to what they really need to run their departments in order to provide the services to the residents that they have come
Yep, and I think we should
to
do the same
expect.
exact.
So that's the way I would like to proceed. I just want to know if that's the direction of this
I would be in favor of
board.
that same direction this year as well.
Okay. As you know, the timeline is, budgets are due to the warrant committee December 1st. However, budgets under the Board of Selectmen's jurisdiction have always been due to me by November 1st because I have to get them on your agenda for approval. And then final budgets are due to the warrant committee by January 31st. So
Okay.
that is the timeline. So I am meeting tomorrow with department heads to start the budget process. And in addition to that, because we didn't go forward with the contingent budget in fiscal 17, I'm going to be asking department heads to create a 5-year forecast again for me so that I can update our 5-year projections, and we can hopefully have that as a presentation in the not-too-distant future.
Now, when you submit to the warrant committee, are we going to be submitting a total balanced budget, contingent and non-contingent?
Non-contingent and contingent
Not
balance.
just individual departmental budgets?
It's
but-
my understanding through the special legislation that that is the role of your town administrator.
That's correct.
Is that the town administrator will present to the warrant committee and to
Balanced
the
budget.
Board of Selectmen a balanced budget. So if we're going to create two budgets, a contingent and a non-contingent, then I would assume it's a balanced non-contingent and contingent budget.
Tom, were you going with that in the direction I think you might have been, which is, I guess the question is then, since the town administrator is going to be presenting a budget to us, do we need to get all the department budgets that are under us by November 1st? That has been the practice.
Yes,
Do
yeah.
we, I guess there's no harm in still doing it, but is it needed? Or is there any reason to change that? Because, now we're going to have the town administrator working closely with these department heads to, and she's going to be presenting an overall budget that will incorporate their budgets.
I don't know if we need to specifically approve them or
I'm
not.
not sure that we do, and I think we
I
should
mean,
probably look a
guess
little
I'd
more
like
into
to
that
see them
question.
as they come in.
Good to see them,
Yes.
but I don't know that we need to approve
They don't even
them.
have, I'm not even
Yeah.
sure they have to be in a meeting, just funnel them to us.
Right,
And, yeah, the town administrator can approve them.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And let's-
And
But
I'll consult with
the
town
harder thing is
council.
going to be getting the stuff beyond, your control.
Budgets under my jurisdiction, absolutely.
That's the easy part. It's getting,
Yes,
cemetery,
buy-in.
library, parks, and schools, and getting those all in, and then having the conversation collectively to get that balanced, non-contingent budget.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, at the end of the day, it's your recommendation. Then the warrant committee takes it from there.
That's
That's
right.
right. Yeah, and I think those other elected boards probably need to go through the legislation a little bit. The town meeting approved this, the legislature approved it. This is something that was voted on by town meeting when we changed the duties of the town administrator. So that was a year ago. People may need to be reminded. This is real. We did it last year, but the legislation hadn't passed at that point. It now is the current state, whereas last year was a transition.
Right.
Anticipating we were going
Sending a
in that
memo to
direction.
the chairs of those
Yes.
boards.
Yes.
So all those departments have to work together and with you in a common goal to get a balanced budget.
That's correct.
But I think the clarity that the town administrator needs is, so we've said we wanted to prepare two budgets.
Yep.
It's just that we're the only board that can put an override question on the ballot.
That's right.
And that's really what this discussion ultimately would be all about, assuming town meeting approves the budget. Now, things can happen in between. State aid could rise dramatically, and our
Right.
plans could change mid-year like they did last year.
Right.
But I
I think we
think,
should plan for it, though, yes.
yes, we
Yeah,
should plan.
absolutely should.
With and I think this year's is a little bit easier than some other years might be in the future, because this year's experience is informed by last year's experience, where we had the 5-year financial projections. We expected that an override budget would go to town meeting last year, and it didn't for the variety of reasons we've talked about. So the expectation of all the boards and committees, including the warrant committee, last spring was that this is now 8 years since the last operating override. And
Right.
as much as nobody likes operating overrides, I think the 5-year financial forecast identified a lot of needs in a lot of areas that we should be planning for,
Right.
and see how the process goes forward.
And I think you know fairly early in the game how big that gap is, you know, the potential gap. You know, if it's below $1 million, then you kind of say, well, there might be something we can do, you know. But once it starts creeping above
Creeping
$1
up.
million, yeah, then you got to come to the conclusion that, you know, we're probably not going to find the revenue, you know, so so then it's just really making sure that we can justify the
number.
the increases, yeah. You know, what specifically, what are they going to be? What, you know, what's driving it, and how does it benefit the town?
So does the town administrator have any, do you need anything further from us, or
No, I think
is it
that's
pretty
good.
clear?
Yep, that's good. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.
Thank you.
We should be saying thank you, because
Thanks.
you're the one doing most of the work.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a discussion about the process for interviews for the town administrator. And I think Jean Boylan, the chair of the search committee, has reached out to all three of us and indicated that they're very close to the end of their process, and they're expecting soon to be
Yep.
submitting the names of 3 finalists
Or
for the
4
town
now, I
administrator
guess.
position. So we thought we should put on the agenda just a discussion of process. And Tom, you were here the last time
Yep.
when the current town administrator was chosen. David and I were not on the board at that time. Are there things that worked well or didn't work well in that process that you would recommend? And also, should we talk about how many rounds of interviews we might want to do? I think we want to just,
I think it worked pretty well the last time. I mean, we each came up with our own 3 or 4, I forget the number of questions that we wanted to ask. Yeah, I might have come up with a bigger list and then pared it down.
And you culled it.
You know, of those questions, because you want to ask all the candidates the same question. And I think it would be a good idea to, you know, get all those questions together, you know, all submit them, maybe funnel them into Anne Marie, because Anne Marie has that HR experience, or into Paige, just to review the questions to make sure that, A, we're not going to get ourselves in trouble asking that particular question, you know, that they are appropriate. And then once they are, then, you know, just collectively, you know, see how many we have and how many we want to ask, and get a list that's, you know, representative of all 3 of us. In terms of, you know, should we do, hopefully we can do it in one. I mean, you know, all the vetting's going to be done, so it's really just going to be going through and, you know, is there anybody that really wows you? I guess if we go through the whole thing and, you know, we're not wowed particularly by anybody, then maybe we need another, but maybe decide that.
hopefully that's not the case.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And I mean, I know they'll submit 3 to us. I think that, you know, there might be that option to talk to maybe the final 2 twice. You know, sometimes you talk to someone the first time, you might have a few more different questions for them the next time. So I'd like to keep that open-ended as a possibility.
See how it goes.
Just to see how it goes,
Yep.
but that can obviously change, and we can talk about that. But I'd also like a town administrator to be in this process a little bit, since she's done this job for a number of years here. She knows it. She's done it well, and I think that we, as a board, want her in the transition. And I think that it's ever so important that she helps us, being Anne Marie, helps us in, you know, getting to our final decision. Obviously, we will make that decision as a board, but I think that it would be very helpful for us.
Yeah, I agree. So it sounds like we should, based on past experience and probably best practice too, we should set aside one night to do the interviews, nothing else on the agenda,
Right.
just the interviews that night. And maybe plan for, I don't know, How long were they last time? Close to an hour each, 45 minutes? An hour?
45 minutes.
Yeah, about that, yeah.
Long 45 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, and we actually had it over at
We had it at the MPEG studio.
studio, so we could have a little bit bigger audience, but.
Yes.
So that might not be a bad idea again. I don't remember if there was a large audience there, but there was an audience. I
There
remember
was an
that.
audience, but it wasn't terrifically large, no.
All right, so, I mean, earlier in the agenda, our next meeting dates are October 4th, and I believe we already have things on the, and that's probably too soon. I don't even know if the committee will
Yeah,
have made a
probably.
recommendation. We have the 18th and the 25th set aside, depending upon when they make the recommendations. We could see whether one of those nights works, or
The
we may have
25th
to.
might be nice if we could do it then. I mean, I think that's, because they're doing some vetting in terms of quarries and other things.
Yeah, they need a little bit of time.
Yeah, lead
on
time to get that done.
That may make the most amount of sense to do it.
25th. Well, I think we'd like to do it fairly soon after, once they present the names to us, I think we probably want to do it fairly
Right.
soon after that.
So
So,
maybe try and keep that 25th clear.
all right, why don't we target that date?
Okay,
And we'll check in with Gene Boylan and his committee, see where they're at.
okay.
Okay, that sounds like a good
Yeah.
process. Anything else, anyone, on that topic?
Well, they've just done a heck of a job keeping on schedule and in a
I
professional
think the
way.
committee really
Committee's
did
done
a
a lot
good
of work,
job.
yeah.
They've done a ton of work, and very, very pleased and thankful.
Yes, I am too. All right, one-day liquor licenses.
Okay. There are 5 one-day liquor licenses to be voted. So I'm going to propose a motion to approve 4 one-day liquor licenses for the Milton Arts Center for concerts to be held at 334 Edge Hill Road from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Saturday, October 1st, 2016, Friday, October 28th, 2016, Saturday, November 5th, 2016, and Saturday, December 3rd, 2016.
A second.
Any discussion?
No, other than, do we know how many liquor licenses this has been to Milton Arts Center within the fiscal year?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I will find that out for you.
Other than that, I'm fine with it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next motion is to approve a one-day liquor license for the Friends of Milton Crew for a fundraiser to be held at the First Parish Church, 535 Canton Avenue, on Friday, October 21st, 2016, from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have an approval of a Celebrate Milton proclamation.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve and sign a proclamation for Celebrate Milton occurring on Sunday, October 2nd, 2016.
Second that motion.
Any discussion? Then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we should encourage everyone to come to that. Celebrate Milton on
It's a great
Sunday,
event.
October 2nd, as the speakers we had earlier indicated. That's always a nice event.
Have a great turnout.
Okay, another proclamation for the Reflecting Milton Group.
Make a motion to approve and sign a proclamation for Reflecting Milton.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Boards and committee appointments. It may sound odd to the viewers to reappoint the 350th Celebration Committee, but they have some post-anniversary celebration they want to finish up, such as dealing with the clocks and the gifts that they were making to the town. So some of the members of this committee have asked to get the committee reappointed just to make sure that they can have a meeting and they're doing everything the correct way.
Okay, I'll make a motion to reappoint Catherine Fagan of 78 Capon Street, Kevin Donahue of 17 Meeting House Lane, Joanne Trefone of 40 Pillen Road, Wallace Sisson of 278 Adams Street, Brian Doherty of 515 Canton Ave, Elizabeth Neville of 5 Cliff Road, Janet Christensen of 24 Gordon Road, Hyacinth Critchlow of 70 Meadowview Road, Linda Lee Sheridan of 57 Clifton Road, Mary McLaughlin of 3 Herrick Drive, Emma Jean Moulton of 435 Elliott Street, to the 350th Celebration Committee to serve through May 2017.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next item is the Airplane Noise Advisory Committee, reappointments.
I'll propose a motion to reappoint Sebastian Barbagallo of 27 Otis Street, Matthew Crowley of 22 Lawndale Road, Michael Andrusino of 225 Woodland Road, Jennifer Goonan of 37 Woodchester Drive, Andrew Schmidt of 52 Buckingham Road, David Godine of 196 School Street, Mona Killingback of 351 Atherton Street, and Barbara C. Martin of 525 Canton Avenue to the Airplane Noise Advisory Committee, and Cindy Christensen of 59 Collimore Street as the ex officio member of the Airplane Noise Advisory Committee to serve through July of 2017.
Second.
And I just want to report that Christopher Zambuto, who was our former CAC representative and had been a member of the committee, is stepping down, but is very willing to stay involved and help in another way with these issues. So thanks to Chris Zambuto for all of his service in the past few years. If no discussion, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We should try to get a letter out to Chris. You're probably already drafting one.
Yes.
Okay. We have a committee for the in-service training.
I'll move to appoint Thomas McCarthy of 629 Randolph Ave and reappoint Jack Calabro of 629 Randolph Ave to In-Service Safety and Training Committee to serve through September 2017.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Historical Commission.
I'll move to reappoint Wallace Sisson of 278 Adams Street and Meredith Hall of 41 Russell Street to the Historical Commission to serve through September 2019.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Logan Community Advisory Committee.
I'll move to reappoint Cindy Christensen of 59 Collimore Street as Milton representative and Michael Andrusino of 225 Woodland Road as Milton alternate to the Logan Airport Community Advisory Committee to serve through October 2017.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the Massport CAC.
I'll move to reappoint Cindy Christensen of 59 Collimore Street as Milton's representative to the Massachusetts Port Authority Community Advisory Committee to serve through October 2017.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Administrators Report.
Yes, Madam Chair, I just want to inform the public that William O'Donnell, the Registrar for the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds, will be holding office hours at the town of Milton on Thursday, October 20th, and those office hours are from 10 to 12 noon, and they will be held in the Blute Conference Room, which is in the basement of Town Hall. I also just wanted to inform the general public that the Council on Aging, again this year, will be running its Shred Day with the help and the courtesy of Attorney Mike Morrissey. They're able to hold this Shred Day again, and it will be Friday, October 28th from 9 a.m. to noon at the Council on Aging, so people can bring all of their documents that they want to shred, drop them off, and that's a great program. And lastly, which is very exciting, I wanted to announce to the board and to the general public that the town of Milton has been awarded a recycling dividends program grant of $9,500 through the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program.
Great. Great
That is
news.
good news. And that Shred Day was very popular last year. I
Yes.
heard from a lot of
Yeah.
people how much they really appreciated that.
Sure was.
That's a great service.
Yes, it is. That's it, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Fagan. The only thing I wanted to mention is really just a thank you to the Milton Interfaith Clergy Association that organized the vigil last week at the Milton Cemetery to regarding the vandalism of the Holocaust Memorial sculpture right near the pond at the cemetery. I thought the Interfaith Clergy Association, they always do a lot of nice work, especially around events like this and then other events during the year like the Martin Luther King observance. But they pulled the ceremony together very quickly, just on about a day or two's notice, and it was well attended. There had to have been a couple hundred people there, I think. So it was a very nice ceremony, and they're an important group in town that that does a lot of important things and isn't always as visible maybe as some other organizations are. But I think the Clergy Association is a great resource here in town, so they did a very nice job.
Great.
And I have nothing else to report. Any reports?
I just want to give a shout out to the Milton Substance Abuse Coalition for their great work that they have done, and in conjunction with the public schools, Superintendent Gormley, John King, our police chief, our town administrator, and all the parents and children involved. You know, they just released the data at the library last week, and they have an event coming up soon.
October 4th.
On October 4th at the high school.
Yes.
In the auditorium. And it's really great to see so many people so passionate about making a difference. And I just want to commend them for their diligence and duty to the town. It's really commendable.
That's another important organization doing some great work.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I
Huge
attended
problem.
that meeting with Member Burns, and I have to tell you, I've attended a couple of meetings, and each meeting, it gets bigger. The participants get larger and larger and larger, and they're doing great, great work. They really are. It's a great coalition.
Great. I just wanted to give a thank you to Katie Pearl from Reflecting Milton. She invited me to the Repertory Theater to, she had one ticket for a one-person play with, I'm going to get her name wrong, but it's Andrea, I forget what her middle name is, Smith. She was on Nurse Jackie. I don't know if you ever saw the show Nurse Jackie, but she gave a one-woman play basically on all, she kind of goes around the country just listening to people and just kind of becoming them, you know, in character. And this was kind of talking about just race relations and, you know, kind of the Black Lives Matter kind of, you know, vein of it, you know, just, you know, the police and it was a very interesting play, really made you think a lot. So it was good. And we just had some good conversation about Reflecting Milton. And
Good.
It's going to be a great program over the next year.
Oh, it should
That
be.
also kicks off at the Celebrate Milton event on next
Lots
Sunday.
of great planned events.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, do we have anything for citizen speak response? Or future agenda items? One thing we might want for a future agenda is, we'll have to check in with the planning board to see, in terms of a winter town meeting, if there will be a need for that for any zoning issues, but if there is...
I talked to Ned Corcoran today, and he is still planning on coming up with a ice house warrant article, and was hopeful to have a late January. Or, but I don't know if the planning board has anything, and it'd be awful difficult just to do a...
Yeah, so we should check in with the planning board, but if there were to be one, then, you know, we should probably start thinking, are there any articles that we would want to bring at that time? You know, such as the traffic commission composition, or any other articles that, there was one that, you know, that we put forward last May that we may want to revisit, but certainly they could wait until May as well. There may not be a need to do them right in the middle of the winter, but...
Yeah, like the noise bylaw, I don't know if that's...
That's the one
ready
I was
for
thinking
prime-
of.
Yeah, is that ready for prime time yet? I know
May not be.
it kind of went back, and I don't know if anybody's worked on it since, even, but...
Okay, so if no other future agenda items, then I will move that we enter executive session to discuss negotiating strategy with respect to litigation, airplane issues, Thayer Nursery, strategy with respect to real property, 0 Central Avenue, believing that having such discussions in open session would have a detrimental effect on the litigating and negotiating position of the board, and to return to open session for the purpose of adjournment.
Second.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Burns?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So thank you. We are now in executive session.